I'm your host, Dion Abrams, and my guest this evening is Brother Tacuma Ogunseys. And so we'll be talking about, as usual, things that are germane to the political, social, and economic landscape of Guyana. I want to welcome you, Brother Ogun, to the program.
It is a pleasure, for us to engage our viewers.
Now, there are, lots of issues that are currently taking place. We have the issue of recovery costs from Exxon. We got the disaggregated figures for roads and so on in relation to Region 6 by, I myself have a video on YouTube showing the disparity in the development of roads within Indian communities as against in African communities, and then we have the issue of the nurses and the health system, the healthcare system, along with the other things. But the government, in its effort to somehow make it appear that all things are good in Guyana, they went to the United States of America. And you know that the Burke and the others have a meeting coming up this weekend, and apparently their intent is to try to somehow downplay the importance of that activity. But what do you think, from listening to what the government and the other people have said, are the outcomes in relation to those meetings?
Well, I think the first point I want to make is that to salute Burke and the other North American comrades for an excellent work they have been doing in trying to promote the injustices that are taking place in the Guyanese society under the stewardship of the PPP, particularly its racial discrimination and its, its apartheid behavior. And the government has been, trying to underplay the effectiveness of that work, while at the same time they keep fighting on the comrades. The comrades decided to organize a very important conference this weekend to bring together important U.S. Congress persons, to have a discussion on general issues, including the situation in Guyana. And I think that the very fact that the government ran to Washington, whether invited or not invited, but they make sure that they went to Washington in the last week or so as a direct response to fight back against the expectations, of the Burke conference. And I think, it shows that the work they have been doing has been having, effects on the government, and they are forced to engage directly and engage at the highest level of the state, which includes the president himself. The first, it is interesting because the last 3 weeks, the U.S.-Guyana relationship has been, in the highlights of the news at varying points. I remember the last program we began discussing the former U.S. Ambassador Cheryl Lynch proposal, that the U.S. was willing to facilitate talks between the opposition here and the government. And Ali, dissed it, and in fact he slammed the door in your face, despite all the fact that she did a lot of dirty work to bring them into power. But he sent her home in the traditional PPP way, But that was a high point of U.S. diplomacy, and my understanding is that she had left, so that was a high point. And then soon after that, they had these more current engagements. So whether the government like it or not, they can't ignore the work that's being done in North America, okay, to influence the U.S. governmental institutions, okay, approach to Guyana. And I think that that is a work well done. I was reading an article on the engagement with Jeffries, where the Guyana government or the Guyana delegation tried to portray that the congressman and his delegation didn't raise the ethnic issues and the question of discrimination in the PP government. And they were trying to portray that as some victory for them.
Okay.
But then I saw something coming from the congressman's website where he put out his official statement. And he gave a different narrative. He made it very clear that they did raise the very matters that the PP seems to be suggesting wasn't raised. He said they were raised. He raised the whole question of inclusivity, the whole question of ethnic discrimination, African-Indian relations, and so forth and so forth. So, what sometimes, baffles my mind is that I don't know why the PPP would think that you will have such a high level engagement with US or any state officials, and you could lie your way out of it in that way.
Well,
And you don't expect the people defending their own interest and their own integrity and their accountability to their own people, that they will, say what took place and to, fight back on your misrepresentation. But these chaps, I don't know what is driving their logic. It doesn't make sense. It is better you say something to the effect that, they get a better appreciation of our side of things.
but you see, that's their nature. When Ali went to the United States prior to this visit, he made it appear as though, again, that Jeffries gave the impression that Jeffries was somehow not willing to engage in these matters, as though the congressman was running from him or some kind of thing. So the tactic they use, they get away with it here because whatever they say is gospel to the people who support them. But in the wider sphere, when they try that, they have to understand that it's not being looked at in a myopic way, that this is a broad view and people from all walks of life are paying attention. So when they lie like this, it just exposes, the nature of their machinery, their propaganda, Stalinist mentality. And it's really sad, that they can believe they can worm their way out of something like that and get away with it, right? But the work of Jeffries and the other members of the Congressional Black Caucus in relation to the struggle of Guyana is critical and it's important. And I think their voice is being heard as a unit because they're solidly behind the struggle here in Guyana. But I am still of the view that we cannot be too overtly dependent on external intervention as the route to our salvation. Nothing is happening here to rock the boat. And unless we begin to make things happen here to let the PPP understand that what is happening is unacceptable and that we're not going to take any more of it, then they're going to continue their march. And when you listen to Jack Dio, he dismisses everything that says that a different course of action should be taken by the PPP, right? Whether it's in terms of inclusivity, whether it's in terms of the roads that are being built in the Indian communities, and the basic, poor roads that are in the African communities that are being ignored and so on. It's going to continue like that because he simply brushes it aside as though it's not important. And we as a people here are simply sitting and taking it, all right, without any form of resistance and raising our voices in a stern way. So how is the change going to come?
I agree with you. We can't be over dependent on external forces. I mean, while in politics, external influences, are important, but at the end of the day, it only makes sense if domestically there is a corresponding, kind of useful engagement that will make that diplomacy effective. And clearly, as you said, in Guyana, in as far as correct responses from the population, goes, it is far from what is necessary in order to force changes in the society. And we have been laboring on this program to make the point that the problem in Guyana is an African problem. It's not, while everybody want to contribute what the people do, Jagdeo doing, we were trying to say for quite a while that Jagdeo them could only do what they're doing because the African community and its leadership, are not responding appropriately to the excesses of the PPP. You see, and I still feel fundamentally, if you want to get the PP's attention and you want to really begin to open the door for fundamental changes in the country, the politics of the African community and the opposition has to be different. It can't be politics as normal, because it makes no sense. It alienates your own support base. It emboldens the PPP to be more aggressive, and it creates the impression that the people are invincible, and they also create the impression that you are impotent. So the opposition has nothing to gain, in my view, by a continuation of its present engagement. It has to make up its mind. You're in election politics, so ultimately you will go to the polls. But you have to have a politics in between elections that could respond and bring significant pressures to bear on the regime if you want them to adjust their behavior. You see, we are unfortunate in Guyana. There are some countries where, even when the political opposition, the official political opposition, is not militant, the trade union movement, the civic society forces are militant, and they fill the void, that is created by the lack of energies from the political force. But in Guyana, neither side. Political forces are quiet, trade unions are quiet, Muslims are quiet, civic society forces, are quiet as it relates to putting pressure, mobilizing, people to come on the road in any significant. They're not there. They're quite satisfied to write their few letters and to, state a few positions, which all are good. They are necessary things and good things. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with a regime that is not responsive to those things, and as I said over and over, Jagdeo is deliberate in his political approach to the country. It served him well for many years, and it served the PPP well. Put enough pressure in the political equation. Don't allow the conventional institutions to work. Don't allow conventional politics to work. So you're forcing the opposition to move from conventional politics to extra-parliamentary politics, which they're not prepared to do. And to the extent they're not prepared to do, then you don't have nothing to worry. And I think that is where Jagdeo has demonstrated, his his political, understanding of the nature of Guyanese society, including the masses and the population.
Well, I mean, it's a tragedy, and I'm hopeful, that something, I say it at every program, that something is going to change because when you look at what is happening, I mean, I went through, apart from the 23 roads in one village, bush lot in Region 5 there, that are being done, and you look at the other communities, only one road in each community, African community and mixed community, being done. In my, started on Facebook where I put up a photograph of a bridge in Beirut, the state of the bridge, and I made a point that this is the state of infrastructure in African communities. And the PPP always, they have people whom they would use fake identities for you to add them as friends on your Facebook and so on. I usually ignore most of them. Well, I may add one too. So one of their pundits jumped up and said that this is not true. I mean, government is doing work in all the communities and Africans are benefiting. So I decided, I said, I'm going to show exactly what is happening. So I went through Annandale, Buxton, Friendship, Vigilance, Bladen Hall, to show the disparity that in communities where Africans and Indians were living, like in Vigilance, Bladen Hall, they live in a stretch from the public road going south, and they live about 100 meters in, and to the north, same thing. And where the Indians live, all the roads are done. North, Vigilance, Bladen Hall, where the Africans live, no road has been done. Similarly, south, the street demarking the boundary from the Indians and the Africans, that street is there, but beyond that, where the African people are living in the south of Vigilance, not a single road. When rain falls, they have to trudge through mud and all of that. Buxton, Friendship, the roads are all in a terrible shape. I have that on video. You can check my YouTube, Forbes Abrams, and you will see when you go to Annandale, they're doing all the streets, and now they are using not the asphalt, they're using concrete, where they ready mix, and they're pouring this and making beautiful, long-lasting streets in Annandale, the entire Annandale, Corbin Park, all of the roads have been done. Go to Guziknan, all the roads, every nook and cranny, and Jack Dio is dismissing these blatant, evidence as, nothing, as though it's not important. Glossing over it, not defending, because you can't defend what is there, but making it appear as though it's nothing big that is taking place. But we are sitting down and we're taking it. Nobody is coming out to demonstrate for roads. Buxton Millwalk was done. Like you said, when they are under pressure, they respond. So when we were having our meetings, going to the communities, when we went to Buxton and we were picketing, we went there 1 week, the other week they had their outreach. And while we had our meeting there, they dug up the Millwalk Road between the public road and the railway embankment. They did that little stretch to demonstrate to the press, who would have been coming to our demonstrations, that while we are demonstrating, work is taking place. But after that, what? You understand? Nothing. Okay? And we are not fighting. Looking in the back dam, the bridges that we have to use, the canals really are in a terrible strait. The roads are not being done to get into the farmlands. And a youngster had to put his money to resurface one of the bridges because he has to go over that bridge to get to his farm. So he bought all the 2x12, bought the bolts, bought the tar and everything, and covered that entire bridge so that he could, a young man doing that. And one guy on Facebook is telling me that we have Ejil, a black man, in the seat of Minister of Public Infrastructure. Why don't we form a delegation and go and speak to him? Doesn't Ejil know what is happening in these communities? Do we have to go to him to tell him that?
No, man. I don't think. That's exactly what they want. That is the POP line of march.
Mm-hmm.
Increase deprivation in the African community and force them to come and beg the PPP for things. I mean, that is their ball game, and we have to don't play to that. We want attention. We must know what we got to do to get attention, and do what we got to do. You can't play this thing the way the people want you to play it. Hey, you got to go to Ejil for Ejil. Ejil got the list of roads that the people do. In Parliament, I think when he was being pressed, he said he can't really answer the question because if he answers the question, disclose, they're going to lead to big problems. So, but that is the approach. The approach is to deliberately create extreme deprivation in the African community and force us to go to the PPP and beg to get things done. They don't see us as equal citizens who have equal rights to the taxpayers' money, and we're supposed to have this access despite what is your partisan politics. When the election is done and government is established, the government is there to serve all the people and to serve them in an equitable, and a fair way. I mean, in real politics, one might expect that, a government in power may tilt the scale a little in favor of their own people, but this is not the way it's seen. This is wholesale, this is wholesale apartheid behavior. You see, they want the Indians to be extremely clear what we're doing for y'all, and they want the Africans to be extremely clear what is not being done for you. And if you want, like what the Indians have, you gotta come and drink from we cup. So that is their formula for the country. And the longer we take to turn it back, I'm telling you, it will become a nightmare for us. It will be a nightmare. Time is not on our side, and I really don't know why our political leadership seems to behave like though they have time. And that's what baffles me. This situation facing our people and the opposition constituency is so clear and straight that you don't have to be bright. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if you look at the question of governance and elections, the opposition will make all the right call. We need a new voter list. We need biometrics. The Constitution said that the president must consult with the opposition. The Constitution says X and say Y. It is not being done. The opposition is contended to repeat these things that the PUP is not doing, but it is not prepared to go beyond that. And that is what really worry me. There is not one issue that I could say with any real certainty that, look, the opposition got a red line. You see, and I'm repeating it over and over because to me it is critical in politics. That is what Jagdeo and the PUP is looking for. They're looking to see to what extent there is any issue that the opposition, okay, will decide that this is enough and engage differently. And they're convinced themselves that there's no such issues, therefore we don't have nothing to worry about. And I think they're correct. I think the people reading of the opposition is correct. The opposition at this moment and the people are not prepared to fight beyond a certain point. And if that is true, they're objectively the people don't have nothing to worry about. It's when that begins to change, then the PPP, okay, got something to be worried about. So the longer the opposition and its supporters take, the longer the African community take to begin to turn the tide against the PPP, these things that we're complaining about will continue and get worse. It can get better. Because contempt in politics, like in any aspect of human relationship, breeds contempt. You know from little boy going to school, you know, the bad boy will tap you behind your head. You don't respond, it keep tapping you and laughing, and the friends, they see you get tapped. But the day you never fight back, and he had to fight. Whether you beat you or not, but he feel thing. He see, the next day he see you, he pass you. You know, because he intend to get himself hurt. But if he tap you behind your head, and you take it, and he tap you every day. And the same thing this government is doing. So to me, this is a simple line of march. This doesn't call for no big political strategizing. This is simple. We belong to a bottom line struggle. No credible political person can't tell me that they don't know what is missing in the equation.
And you see the idea of gifting and making people feel entitled would have resulted in the situation at Kanji with the sugar workers, and now people are crying out. They treated us like I mean,
that's an interesting contradiction.
Because
I mean, my attitude to, I know trade union export, and I can argue with the workers have a justification to insist that they gotta get severance, right? Those of y'all who are in trade union people. But me opposed to this is this: if businessmen is break the rules, and if businessmen is force the government and the system to give them more than what they deserve, and workers get wherever the section the workers come from, and the workers believe that they got a case where they could force the government to get more, I don't have no problems with them. Go ahead, because the businessmen do it and they get through. So if they could do it, then you, the workers, could do it. But what is interesting in this scenario is the ethnic realities. These in the main is Indian sugar workers. These are supporters of the PPP who vote them into power. And obviously, if I vote you into power, I must get expectations. I mean, that's the name of the game. But I'm being told that the police were very careful, because this thing has been going on for a number of days. And initially, the police was very careful, not to engage the workers in a certain way for the obvious reasons, as PPP supporters. But I hear there's a rift developing in the PPP, and some saying the sugar workers get greedy.
Oh.
They get greedy and teach them a lesson. And the word was teach them a lesson. And so the police was given the instruction for you buy.
Teach them.
You buy who was in charge of the ministry. Teach them a lesson.
Teach them a lesson. Okay.
And they teach them a lesson.
Teach them a lesson.
So the sugar workers should learn the lessons. I hope they learn the lessons properly. They see how oppression.
The people get greedy. The people are responding to what they were cultured.
Yeah.
You understand? They get severance from the APNU. You give them 250,000. Then you go and give them behind people's back all the other, So, is our government, the treating we good every time. Look, the PPP has cultured these workers that when they want something, make nice.
And you don't get it.
And you're going to get it. You understand? So I don't know how they reach a point now, as you were saying, that the workers get greedy.
Well, there's no coming out to the PP. Because, I mean, as much as, and here you buy Ben, is on the file. Because he had to give the instructions.
Okay.
So some other elements within the party who didn't agree, you know. But he was told to teach him a lesson, you know.
Allegedly told to teach him a lesson.
Yeah, teach him a lesson, you know. They're getting greedy.
It's interesting politics
interesting.
in any sense. I mean,
But I hope the workers really understand that oppression don't have limits, you know. They don't have limits. And at the end of the day, workers are workers and rulers are rulers. And when your interests go against their interests, they come down with a heavy hammer and they will crush your head like they crush any other sections of the community. And I hope but what I found extremely disgusting is the fact that they strip workers to their shorts to photograph them. I mean, I'm trying to understand what's the logic behind it. Is this is part of the humiliating program? You know, and of course I hear the Indian rights activists, you know, kicking up hell.
well, the Guyana Human Rights Association put out a statement.
Yeah, by talking about Rafi Dev on them.
Yeah, them they answer.
You know, if that be happening under a APMU government, you know. But we can't, as a program and as a party, we can't encourage or support the treatment of workers that way. You can't unleash violence on the workers, whether you think they're greedy or not. You can't strip people to the shorts to photograph them. I don't know, you know, since that is part of our political and police culture, and we have to condemn it in the strongest possible way, you know, and stand in solidarity with those workers who have been victims of the PVP excesses. But it is good in a way, though, when these contradictions surface, because in some ways it does help to create some amount of consciousness in the Indian community. The point is, those moments of consciousness don't last so very long, you see. But the sociologists will say, one body build up, you know. It's better to get some consciousness than to get no consciousness. So this then starting always from zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next issue of contention is recovery costs by Exxon, particularly in the Stabroek block. A lot of talk now has been taking place in relation to, and even in court, the amount of monies Exxon has been putting up as cost recovery for exploration and all these things, and the government's failing to do the recommended audit, the requisite audit in relation to these figures that are being put up by Exxon. The most recent is $212 billion by Exxon, which of course raises questions. What is it that is playing out that is giving Exxon this kind of free, this largesse to simply come up with figures and believe, you know, that nothing is going to come of it. They're going to get away with these crimes that they're committing, and the Guyanese people are going to be bereft of the benefits that should be given to them. What kind of government is it that we're dealing with?
You see, Exxon is no angel, and they are in this for themselves. They're very clear, you know, those multinationals are very clear. Exxon is in for itself. And Exxon is taking full advantage of on the development of Guyanese institutions as it relates to the oil and gas industry. And, they're, driving us in the sun. But this is being made possible by the fact that they have clearly corrupt a lot of Guyanese politicians. I would say both in government and in opposition. But right now we're dealing with those who are in government. I think that a lot of the government leaders at the very highest levels of the government, is in Exxon's bag. So they are more concerned with pleasing Exxon than really defending the national interests. Now, this particular the controversy that you cited that involved the 214 million US dollars, 240 million US dollars. What I find, troubling is that this thing has been going on for a protracted period. And this is the Ministry of National Resource. And this is the oil industry which Jack Dio has full and total responsibility for. And I can't buy into the argument that they seems to be making as it relates to this particular controversial matter. What the government is saying that, look, this is a mistake that was done, or whether it is deliberate or it's carelessness, but this is something that's done by some sections within the ministry, some unit, some area of the ministry. And what the government is saying, we told them, look, what you all do, don't do it again. You all got the authority to reduce this money for Exxon from 212 or 212 million to 11 million, then to 3 million. No, I don't believe. Look, y'all work longer into the government sector and you will have a deeper understanding of workers' behaviors. But I am not convinced that no Guyanese set of Guyanese workers would take on the responsibility to enter into a fraudulent agreement with Exxon, okay, that involved that magnitude of money, okay, and reduce it from 212 million US dollars to 11 million, then ultimately to 3 million, depriving the Guyana state that kind of funds. I don't believe no section of Guyanese workers is so crazy enough to do that. It was done because, in my judgment, they had to be instructed at the very highest levels of the government to behave in that way. But now that the thing burst out and it become a national issue, okay, somebody has been made the scapegoat and they're making the workers the scapegoat. But it's interesting. If a man in the ministry steal a soap and he get catch, they like to call in the police, or they like to give some dismiss internal investigation dismiss and say that your behavior is unethical and so. And these workers who engage in this major, okay, behavior, all they've been told by the government is that, look, what you all did was wrong, you all had the right to do it, and don't do it again. I can't buy it. I can't buy it. You work in the government. I only work with the government, a government department in my life, in a few years in the APMU government. But knowing Guyanese workers and Guyanese mentality, and knowing Exxon would not enter into that kind of a corrupt transaction with low-level operates in the ministry. They would know that they have to corrupt at the very top. And that's what happened. So Jack Dio and the minister is fully responsible. And in a proper society, both of them will have to answer and resign. You know what I mean? Resign. Now we live in a country where a man, if he gets shut down and lose his life, if he snatch a watch, if he thief a cell phone, and you got government officials involving in hundreds of millions of US money, fraud and questionable behaviors, and they just walk, nothing.
Well, nothing came out of Sue, Sue Rang, and we don't expect anything to come out of this, right? But
no, I think the Guyana will be getting how much? 107 million.
When I say nothing comes out of it, in terms of...
No, I don't respond to that. I was just thinking that we didn't tell people how much we getting from the 217, we getting 107 million.
The punitive measures against the perpetrators of these actions. And like you said, it's not something that is going to, a decision that is going to be made at a low level within the ministry. It has to come from way up. All right? And we've seen that kind of collaboration. I mean, when they went to in relation to the permit for the environmental situation in the court, the figure that Exxon put up, they had to retract it. And look at the size of the retraction, you understand? And that figure that Exxon would have put up would have been sanctioned by because they're part of it. The government's defense, So we are in a terrible state, and this idea of telling the poor people that you don't have, because one of the defenses that Jagby was putting forward is that, look, the money is not coming in as people are seeming to suggest, all right? But every other day you hear them drawing on 40 billion and this from the, extracting more and more money. But where is the money going? People are not feeling it. We can't feel it in the highway to Eccles and all that and so on, because you're dealing with life and livelihood. All right, but for them that is not a matter of concern, because when they deal with these projects, we know too that in those that the money is being siphoned out. So everything is about the cabal and its partners, so that they can reap and rape this country and leave the people. That
is the reality. That is the stern reality facing us. The question is what to be done, and we know what is to be done. But we have to get it done. Because I don't think no Guyanese could tell me that they know what we ought to do.
Look at the situation with the nurses. You have been telling me about the current situation in the health sector, and it's public knowledge that our nurses are being trained. The fact is, when you train people, all right, you spend money to train them. It's resources that you're putting, teachers, nurses, doctors, and so on. The country's resources are being used to train these people. And when they're done, they're not serving the country. They're not here because they cannot. When people make a sacrifice, they expect that the sacrifice that they would have made is somehow going to be compensatory in terms of how they live, their ability to sustain themselves. They want to raise families and all of these things. And we are seeing none of that. People are basically squanting, living like and how are we going to get above this? And what does it spell for the ordinary man who cannot pay the thousands of dollars, for one night in a private hospital?
I mean, I think I am a tough guy, you know, but I tell people the only thing I is really worried about is
Yeah,
if you really get a serious illness.
right, right.
It will eat up every cent that you manage to save. That is the thing that really, you know, I just hope keep my, as old people say, keep your hand crossed that you don't really fall into any serious illness in this place. But as I was telling you that, I mean, I was reading somewhere that they said within the last 2 years or so, over 300 nurses leave the country. You know, and nurses, I mean, and Ali concede that we have a real crisis with nurses leaving, but he seems to be arguing that the solution to that is to bring Cuban nurses. But I don't know if they'll bring Cuban nurses and pay them the same pittance that they're paying Guyanese nurses. And as you said, the solution to the problem is to pay the nurses, you know, decent money to keep your people, you know. But this government seems to be bedded into philosophy that Guyanese must not have comfortable lives. You know, only their friends in the cabal and some must have comfortable lives. And it doesn't make economic sense. As you said, you train all of these people. And then when you, I think the same article I saw, they said that, what is it? The guy at Georgetown Hospital, the hospital, it got about 450 beds. And then they got some ratio of nurses to bed. And I think the person was making the argument that what you need is about 1,200 nurses, okay, at any time, you know, to upkeep the system functioning properly. And we are operating far, far below that. So the quality of the delivery of healthcare is significantly affected, you know. And you don't care, even if you got the best doctors and you got the best equipment, but you got the nurses to, you know, support, you know, you know. And if we're bleeding to that extent in terms of losing nurses at the rate that we're losing it to foreign countries, you know, it's no more a crisis, because this has been going on for years now, you know. And I remember a year ago or 2 years ago, the government boasted that they will be training so much Guyanese nurses, and so suggesting that soon they will have excess nurses, you know. But they can't keep way training. Nobody wants to work with them for them pittance if they could find better offers in other countries. It's just natural. And we just repeating the cycle over and over and over.
But it has a spin-off too, you know, because like you said, well, the ordinary man who has to go to the public hospital, you go there, the quality of health care that is being delivered is significantly affected, which means that it can send up the mortality rate, you know, coming out of the hospital, even the infant mortality rate and all the other rates that are, and that can affect the health of the population. If the health of the population is affected, then every sector, productive sector, is going to be affected. And then we have the teachers. I mean, they're not saying that they're going to meet directly with teachers, not speak with the union, they're going to talk to teachers. But what are they going to tell teachers that the union would not have been discussing with them from consultation with teachers?
Yeah. You know, I mean, the teachers be one of the most illiterate sections of the population. So I don't know, would they believe they're going to bulldoze the teachers?
I don't know, you know, I mean, because the strategy, just as how they're dealing with the pathogen now, is to make it appear as though we are giving you, so you must be beholden to us. All right, so we're not giving the pathogen the subvention, you come to us, like you've been saying, that, you know, they want to be seen as the gods, and you got to kowtow and beg them. So they're going to teachers now to tell them what. All right? So when at the end of the day, we are the ones, not your union, that
come negotiate directly with we.
Yeah, we are the ones that you must show, you know, this kind of gratitude to, and be, you know, condescending and all these things. So
But it just shows how the level of contempt they have for working people and the historical struggles of the working class. You know, and this is a party who said, you know, they said they come out the bowels of the working people, Chedi with the Marxism and Leninism.
well, that party, this is a different party.
You know,
the party has a name, but
you know,
the
all of that.
agents are.
That you know, you're now seeking the liberty to destroy workers, organizations that workers invested for umpteen years and don't understand and don't care what is the consequences on the population. I mean, this is the level of those chaps' political, you know, craziness has reached. You know, it's reached a point where they just don't care about anything. You know, they don't care about anything. I mean, we all know that people that say politics always got a little underhand behavior. It always got a little, you know, unprincipled behavior. Okay, you take all of the board. But it also got at the same time some levels of morality, some level of history that you can't want as rulers to destroy the organizations that the people built over centuries to defend the interests. You want to seek to dismantle them, to destroy it without understanding the consequences, or you don't care about the consequences of it on the population. I mean, it is a level of callous and ruthless politics that, you know, in a sense, it's new to Guyana because I don't think no political leadership have ever pushed the button as it relates to trying to muzzle and to destroy and to weaken workers, you know, the way in which this PP government, you know, is doing at present. I think that they have gone beyond any government.
But I mean, the people in the street, we talked about nurses, teachers, other people who are barely surviving. The major avenue for employment now seems to be in the security sector, where everybody is coming to want to join some security agency or other. The old age pension is still a matter of contention. I saw somewhere the other day the argument that old age pensioners should be given at least $60,000, just about below the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Do we have the resources, and is it something
If you give
that is worth
it
considering?
you give it exam hundreds of millions of dollars, walk away with it, you can't argue that you got the resources. The country can more than got the resources. But as we have said, and we have to keep every now and then raise this question in the interest of the old age, old section of the population, that, you know, the government has the money and they should raise old age pension to $50,000 or $60,000, you know, right away. You know, and I think that we have to keep every now and then, you know, raise the matter, because it is not a question of the money is not there. You know, the money is there, but, you know, we got a set of rulers who the population have made them so comfortable that they really don't believe. They're reaching a point where they don't believe that the population is capable of making them miserable. I think that is what is responsible for the behavior. You know, I think the PP has convinced itself, whether rightly or wrongly, that look, between now and the foreseeable future, we could do what we like, and the level of pushback in the country would not be significant enough to threaten our whole rule on the country. Until we could do that, we can be in business. And the quicker we move to that, is the better.
Yeah, but I going down that road. Because we've talked about that, we've talked about it, and every time people begin to agitate for a reason, the same treatment teach them a lesson, and that was meted out to the sugar workers. It's the same big stick method that they use, and that's coming out of Jack Deal's mouth. Lock up like they did with you. You sure if you lock up a couple of them, throw them in the jail, and that the next morning they get up, they ain't gonna want to be out there again. But history teaches lessons that they seem not to understand, that there reaches a point in people where,
It doesn't matter anymore.
it doesn't matter anymore.
And as you mentioned, my case, people have been asking me, I'm back in court on the 26th of this month.
26.
And that is supposed to be, the trial is supposed to start on the 26th.
Okay.
So,
At the vigilance
magistrate
court. Right. So their entire strategy is to look. The president had his. We've gone so deep into dictatorship, Oban, you would not imagine. The president had a walkabout, say cleaning up. Now people, it's not a voluntary thing. You are sent letters instructing you that you have to be a part of this thing. If you don't go now, and you don't show up, they have a register marking to see all who attended and who didn't attend. And the people who didn't go, they were sent letters being threatened, in their jobs and all of these things. Yeah. So it looks like, a voluntary, spontaneous,
but it's very
beautiful.
The coercion behind it.
Well, that is it.
Yeah.
Just as they did with the youngsters that they were giving the $10,000 in these part-time jobs at the NDCs, sending them text messages to attend all the PPP rallies and all of these things. So we are deep in a situation where control and the times are really, really dread. It's really, really dread, and the fact is that they exercise this control precisely because people know that if they lose a job today, it's difficult to find one tomorrow, and the state of people's economies is that if they lose their job today, some of them don't even have a dime to take them through tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this is what they want.
But as I told you, we got to deal with some of these matters for the streets, because here is probably not the best place to deal with some of these matters.
Yeah, I know.
We have to have a kind of talking with Guyanese people that it has to be on the streets. Come here or high waters, you got to be on the streets.
Well, I am hoping that it takes place sooner rather than later, because we really can't continue living like this. It's living worse than than beggars. And you're begging for your things that really belong to you. You're being treated as though you have no.
Modern slavery.
Right. It's really sad, and I'm hopeful that people of themselves, even if it's one madman, that response by a madman. I mentioned George Spade last time, in the Fijian Parliament scenario, that it wakes up in people that urge, that need to rebel and to resist and to say enough is enough, because they've gone way overboard in this. Right? I just want to thank you for being on the program. We began late, but I know Dr. Nagaki is out there waiting to come in with the African drums. I don't want to keep him waiting too long, so you can stay tuned for African drums, where more germane issues relating to the African people are going to continue to be discussed, but we're going to keep pushing for resistance within this country, fight against this dictatorship, this apartheid regime, so that we can have the changes that we need, and so that all people can benefit. I mean, you need a government that is going to be interested in the welfare of all. And this PPP government is only interested. They're giving a little to the communities, even the Indian communities, about the hog of the resources that is going into the pockets of the PPP and the few people who are associated with them. All right, any closing remarks, Brother Owen?
No, just to see we are under pressure, the time pressure, just to see we will continue the discourse.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for being with us. Look forward to being with you next week, same time, same channel, for another program of Walter Rodney Groundings. We do have